Bible's tales have traditionally been viewed as sacred myths, but what if modern science could confirm their authenticity? From the Great Flood to the downfall of ancient empires, these groundbreaking findings not only alter our understanding of history, but also validate the miraculous events recorded millennia ago. Recognized as the world's best-selling book, the Bible boasts an astonishing circulation of 5 to 7 billion copies, according to Guinness World Records. Even non-believers acknowledge its vast influence. Iconic narratives such as Noah's Ark and David's triumph over Goliath have transcended religious boundaries, becoming universally recognized cultural references. Yet, for generations, debates have raged over the Bible's historical accuracy. This debate is understandable, considering the Bible was written by numerous authors across different eras, often long after the events occurred. However, recent scientific advancements have revealed surprising evidence that many biblical stories correspond to real historical events. Discover with us 9 iconic biblical stories that science has now substantiated with compelling evidence. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to join us in unraveling the Bible's mysteries. Each video is filled with miracles and profound lessons. First event, the Great Flood. Among all biblical accounts, none is as renowned or impactful as the story of the Great Flood, chronicled in Genesis, chapters 6 to 9. According to Genesis, 10 generations after the creation of humanity, God observed rampant wickedness and moral decay on earth. The world, once flawless, had become utterly corrupt. Thus, he resolved to purge the earth through a massive flood, declaring, "I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them." Genesis 6:7. In the midst of this impending destruction, God identified Noah as the sole righteous individual deserving salvation. He instructed Noah to construct an ark large enough to shelter himself, his family, and 2 of every animal species from the deluge. When the ark was completed, torrential rains began. As written in Genesis, on that day, all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. Rain fell on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. The devastation was immense. All terrestrial life perished. Humans, animals, and birds alike were obliterated. Only Noah and those aboard the ark survived. Once the waters receded, Noah's family emerged to repopulate and rebuild the earth. The tale of Noah's Ark was often dismissed as mythological rather than factual. However, in 2000, American geologists Walter Pittman and William Ryan from Columbia University presented research on the Black Sea that challenged this perspective. Their findings revealed freshwater mollusk shells embedded in sediment layers beneath the Black Sea, indicating it was once a freshwater lake. They theorized that around 10,000 years ago, rising Mediterranean waters overflowed into the Bosporus, causing a catastrophic flood. Researchers estimated the water's force to be 200 times that of Niagara Falls, capable of covering an area the size of Manhattan under 3,000 feet of water within a year. This event submerged around 60,000 square miles of land, marking one of history's greatest geological catastrophes. Their theory intrigued Robert Ballard, a renowned oceanographer famous for locating the Titanic in 1985. Armed with advanced sonar equipment, Ballard and his team explored the Black Sea. Their discoveries initiated significant debates about links between this catastrophe and the biblical Great Flood. The tale of the Great Flood from the Bible remains a major subject of study and discussion, bolstered by geological and archaeological findings worldwide. Among these, the Black Sea stands out, where evidence of a massive flood dating back to the end of the Ice Age, approximately 10,000 years ago, has been uncovered. Robert Ballard, noted for discovering the Titanic, led a sonar mapping expedition to the Black Sea. His team found ancient remnants, including tools and pottery, 300 feet below sea level. Carbon dating indicated the flood occurred suddenly and may correlate with the biblical flood narratives. While these discoveries substantiate theories of a significant Black Sea flood, they do not prove the global flood described in Genesis. Remarkably, flood myths appear across cultures, from the Inca in South America to Hindu legends about Manu and Chinese tales of the Yellow River flood. Evidence from archaeology and mythology suggest that significant regional floods might have inspired global flood stories. The account of Noah's Ark, deeply symbolic and spiritual, could echo humanity's shared memory of ancient catastrophes. Event 2. Biblical plagues, divine intervention, or natural events. The Bible's Exodus narrative, chapters 7 through 11, recounts 10 plagues God sent to force Pharaoh, often linked with Ramses II, to release the Israelites from slavery. This narrative emphasizes God's supreme authority and the victory of faith over worldly power. Yet, could these events be real occurrences, or are they allegorical tales meant to inspire religious devotion? Studies in 2010 revealed new insights through geological evidence and stalactite analyses in Egyptian caves, pointing to a sudden climate change about 3,000 years ago. This coincided with Ramses II's reign, and likely caused the Nile's transformation into a shallow, stagnant stream. Such conditions may have triggered the biblical plagues. For instance, the river turning to blood might result from an algal bloom of Oscillatoria rubescens, which dyed the water red, killed fish, and emitted a foul odor, aligning with biblical descriptions. Frogs. Water pollution might have driven frogs out of the Nile and onto land. However, without suitable habitats, they likely died in large numbers, leading to severe environmental contamination. Insects. The decay of dead frogs would have provided a breeding ground for insects like gnats and flies, resulting in an infestation that affected both humans and livestock. Livestock plagues. Diseases like blue tongue or African horse sickness, transmitted by insect vectors, could have decimated Egyptian livestock populations. Skin boils. The biblical account of Moses throwing ashes into the air could be interpreted as symbolic of airborne toxins or pathogens that caused widespread skin conditions in Egypt. Volcanic hail. The eruption of Santorini during this period could have sent volcanic ash and debris as far as Egypt, leading to catastrophic hailstorms similar to those described in the Bible. Locust invasion. Drought conditions likely facilitated a surge in locust populations, which devastated crops and led to famine in Egypt. 3 days of darkness. Volcanic ash and debris from Santorini could have obscured sunlight for days, matching the biblical description of prolonged darkness. Death of firstborns. Contaminated food supplies, such as moldy grain or toxic algae, might have disproportionately affected firstborn children, who were often given priority in meals. These scientific theories provide plausible explanations for the biblical plagues, but do not detract from their symbolic and spiritual significance. They highlight the overlap between faith and science, encouraging meaningful discussions about the relationship between religion and history. Were these events acts of divine intervention or natural disasters shaped by environmental factors? Each perspective offers unique insights. Event 3. The Parting of the Red Sea. The parting of the Red Sea, described in Exodus chapter 14, is a defining moment in the Bible, illustrating God's deliverance of the Israelites from Egyptian oppression. Facing imminent danger between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army, the Israelites witnessed a miracle as Moses, under God's command, raised his hand. A powerful wind parted the sea, creating a dry pathway for them. As the Egyptian army pursued, the waters returned, engulfing and annihilating the soldiers. For centuries, this event was revered as a divine act, yet modern scientists have explored natural explanations. In 2010, Dr. Carl Drews of the National Center for Atmospheric Research, NCAR, employed computer models to study the wind set-down phenomenon. The phenomenon occurs when strong, sustained winds cause water to recede, exposing dry land temporarily. Drews's research indicates this could have plausibly occurred in ancient Egypt around 1250 BCE. Drews's findings suggest the crossing likely occurred not at the modern Red Sea, but in the Sea of Reeds near the Tanis marshes. The Hebrew term Yam Suf, accurately translated as Sea of Reeds, was mistranslated as Red Sea in Greek texts during the 3rd century BCE, perpetuating the error in later versions. At the time, Tanis was a shallow marshland, creating ideal conditions for reeds to flourish. A strong east wind could temporarily push back the waters, exposing a dry path. Once the wind subsided, the waters rushed back, drowning the Egyptians. Despite scientific hypotheses, this event continues to carry theological significance. It exemplifies divine power, liberation, and the victory of faith over adversity. Whether explained scientifically or viewed as a miracle, it remains an enduring story of divine intervention and hope. Event 4. The account of the sun standing still in Joshua 10 describes one of the Bible's most extraordinary supernatural events. Leading the Israelites against 5 Amorite kings, Joshua prayed for the sun and moon to halt, allowing more time for a decisive victory. According to the Bible, the sun stood still in the middle of the sky until Israel prevailed. Long regarded as a miraculous event or metaphor, this story gained new interpretations in 2017. Physicists Colin Humphreys and Graham Waddington proposed it might describe an annular solar eclipse, where the moon partially obscures the sun, forming a bright ring. Earlier in the 20th century, linguist Robert Wilson suggested a connection between the sun standing still and an annular solar eclipse. However, there had been no evidence of such an eclipse aligning with the timing of Joshua's story. Using advanced computer simulations, Humphreys and Waddington analyzed astronomical events between 1500 BCE and 1050 BCE. They identified an annular solar eclipse on October 30th, 1207 BCE, visible in Canaan, aligning with the biblical account's timeline. This finding is not only crucial for the field of astronomy, but also offers insight into one of the Bible's most enduring legends. It provides a clearer timeline for the events in Joshua and demonstrates how ancient people viewed astronomical phenomena through the lens of religion and culture. Though still controversial, the annular solar eclipse theory links natural occurrences to the theological descriptions in the Bible. This opens new perspectives on how ancient texts were shaped and preserved, suggesting that many biblical stories could be rooted in real events, interpreted through the beliefs of their time. Next event, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. In Genesis chapter 19, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah tells of God's punishment of 2 cities consumed by sin. The narrative describes burning sulfur raining down from the sky, destroying the cities and their surroundings. Lot's wife, disobeying God's command by looking back, was turned into a pillar of salt, symbolizing the cost of defiance. Long thought to be allegorical, this story gained new credibility with discoveries at Tal el-Hammam in 2006. Archaeologist Stephen Collins and his team found thick layers of ash, charred bones, melted mud bricks, and pottery vitrified into glass with a greenish glaze. Such damage could not be explained by known Bronze Age methods, but required temperatures over 2,000 degrees Celsius. Cosmic airburst hypothesis research published in 2021 proposed that a comet or asteroid exploded above Tal el-Hammam, similar to the Tunguska event of 1908, but far more destructive. The explosion likely caused extreme heat and a massive shockwave that annihilated the city in moments. Additional evidence includes shocked quartz. Sand grains in the area show signs of extreme pressure, consistent with a meteor impact. Salt deposits. High concentrations of salt found in the same layer suggest the blast spread Dead Sea salt, rendering the soil infertile for centuries. These findings invite comparisons to the biblical account. Could the burning sulfur describe the airburst's aftermath? Was the pillar of salt a symbolic reference to salt deposits from the explosion? Does the complete destruction mirror the account in Genesis? The study concluded that the Tal el-Hammam event was a rare natural catastrophe remarkably similar to the Bible's description. It provides a unique connection between science and ancient religious narratives. Thank you for exploring these 5 events with us. Be sure to subscribe and enable notifications to continue discovering the fascinating intersections of the Bible, history, and faith. Let's move on to the remaining events. Event 6 revolves around the Tower of Babel, a prominent story in Genesis, known for symbolizing human pride and arrogance. It's further enriched by archaeological and historical discoveries that provide new insights. In Genesis 11, after the Great Flood, when humanity spoke a single language, they attempted to build a city with a tower that reached the heavens, hoping to showcase their power and reputation. However, God intervened by confusing their language, causing them to be unable to understand one another and eventually scattering across the earth. Although the story carries significant theological meaning, Many scientists and linguists have dismissed it as a mere explanation for the variety of languages. Archaeological findings, however, suggest that the Tower of Babel could have been inspired by a real structure in ancient Babylon. In 2017, Professor Andrew George, a Babylonian historian from the University of London, studied a clay tablet from the Babylonian period, uncovering an engraving of a seven-tiered tower. The engraving also depicted King Nebuchadnezzar II beside the tower, noted as its builder. The inscription identified the tower as Etemenanki, meaning the Temple Tower of Babylon. Professor George argued that the story of the Tower of Babel in Genesis could indeed be based on the Etemenanki. One inscription from Nebuchadnezzar II describes the construction of the tower, mentioning asphalt and fired bricks, and stating that he raised the tower to the heavens, making it shine like the sun. This description bears a striking resemblance to the Genesis account of the tower reaching the heavens. Interestingly, Nebuchadnezzar II enlisted laborers from across his empire, including distant territories he had conquered. This suggests that people from various cultures and languages worked together to construct a Temenanki, indirectly echoing the linguistic confusion depicted in the biblical Babel story. Archaeological findings, especially the clay tablet studied in 2017, offer a fresh perspective. They imply that the biblical Tower of Babel story may be rooted in memories of the Etemenanki, a monumental architectural feat of Babylon. While in exile in Babylon, the Israelites may have transformed the story into a religious symbol, reflecting humanity's helplessness before divine power. Event 7 involves the story of David and Goliath. Found in 1 Samuel 17, this account is one of the Bible's most well-known stories. It depicts the battle between the Israelites and the Philistines in the Valley of Elah, where the Philistine giant Goliath challenges the Israelites to a duel for 40 days. No one dares face Goliath until David, a young shepherd, steps forward. Armed only with a sling and a stone, David defeats the giant by striking him in the forehead, then using Goliath's own sword to deliver the final blow. This story has long been a symbol of faith, bravery, and overcoming challenges. However, recent archaeological discoveries suggest that it might not merely be a religious parable, but could be based on historical events. For many years, the existence of King David was questioned, with some considering him a legendary figure. In 1993, a stone stele was found at Tel Dan in northern Israel, dating to the 9th or 8th century BCE, commemorating the victory of an Aramean king who claimed to have defeated the House of David in Israel. This was the first archaeological evidence confirming David's existence and his historical significance. Goliath, once considered a mythical Philistine warrior, became a subject of archaeological interest in 2005 when a pottery shard bearing the name Goliath was discovered in Gath, his supposed hometown. This artifact, dated to the late 10th or early 9th century BCE, while not directly tied to the biblical figure, suggests that the name Goliath was in use during that era and might reflect a historical character. Nearby, a collection of oversized weapons, including 4 giant spearheads, was found. These artifacts, originally thought to be tent stakes, may have been tools for warriors of extraordinary size, potentially supporting the existence of individuals like Goliath. In 2015, researchers unearthed massive structures in Gath, such as walls and buildings built with stones significantly larger than the norm. These findings align with the idea of a society that included people of remarkable physical stature. Biblical accounts also reference Goliath's relatives, brothers and sons, all described as giants. This strengthens the notion that giant warriors may have been a notable feature of Philistine history. Although the entire story of David and Goliath cannot be verified, archaeological findings, including evidence of David's existence and the oversized constructions at Gath, suggest that the tale may have roots in real historical events, later enhanced as a symbol of faith and courage. 8th event, Adam and Eve, the foundational tale of Genesis. The story of Adam and Eve in Genesis tells of humanity's first ancestors and their bond with God. God created Adam, the first man, and placed him in Eden. Seeing his need for a partner, God created Eve from Adam's rib. Upon eating the forbidden fruit at the serpent's urging, Adam and Eve gained awareness of morality and sin. God punished them by expelling them from Eden, and they began life outside the garden, becoming the progenitors of humanity. Science demonstrates that humanity emerged through evolution, but recent genetic studies suggest a deeper connection to the story of Adam and Eve. Research into mitochondrial DNA identified a mitochondrial Eve, a woman from whom all humans descend. Similarly, the Y chromosome traces all men to a Y chromosome Adam. These figures are not literal first humans but ancestors who lived within overlapping time frames. Initial studies in 1987 placed mitochondrial Eve in Africa around 200,000 years ago, and Y chromosome Adam approximately 100,000 years later. However, new findings in 2013 suggest they may have coexisted in the same era and region, raising intriguing possibilities about their connection. In 2020, biologist Joshua Sidis extended this hypothesis, suggesting that Adam and Eve could have reproduced together and become the common ancestors of all humanity. He also proposed that their existence may not date back millions of years, but instead a few thousand years. While having a universal genetic ancestor is rare, a shared genealogical ancestor is actually common within each generation. The proportion of DNA inherited from our ancestors decreases as we trace further back in time, becoming impossible to measure as we go farther back. This means we do have genetic ancestors, but we can't inherit any measurable DNA from them after a certain point. In 2004, Joshua Zamas conducted another study using computer simulations to estimate the most recent common ancestor of humans. His findings indicated that our common ancestor might have lived only a few thousand years ago. This finding challenges the conventional evolutionary timeline and suggests that humans may have evolved much more quickly, with the story of Adam and Eve possibly reflecting a true common ancestor for humanity. The final event, the creation of the universe. In the opening verses of the Bible, the book of Genesis describes the creation process. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Genesis 1:1-3. This is one of the most fundamental religious concepts, asserting that God created the universe. However, recent views suggest that the biblical account closely resembles a modern scientific theory about the origin of the universe, the Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory posits that the universe began as a minuscule, dense point before expanding in a massive explosion that caused it to rapidly expand faster than the speed of light. This event cannot be directly observed because no light existed in the earliest moments of the universe. After a period of time, electrons started interacting with nuclei to form atoms, allowing light to penetrate the universe. Many argue that the similarities between the biblical description and the Big Bang Theory are striking. Some scientists believe that the Big Bang provides solid evidence that the universe had a definite origin and represents an act of creation, just as described in Genesis. Denying this today, they argue, is equivalent to rejecting scientific fact. Additionally, many point out that the Bible does not just reflect the expansion of the universe, but also describes this process in great detail. Numerous passages depict the universe as being stretched out. This discovery aligns well with modern scientific understanding of the continuous expansion of the cosmos. What is particularly interesting is how verbs are used in the Bible to describe this stretching. Some passages imply an ongoing process, while others suggest that the process was completed long ago, yet the stretching continues. The combination of completed and ongoing elements in the biblical narrative raises intriguing questions about how ancient authors could have had an intuitive understanding of the creation of the universe, a concept that science has only begun to recognize in recent decades. The events in the Bible that we have discussed are supported in part by modern science, but the question of whether they actually occurred remains complex. While science can offer theories and evidence that support these events, many aspects of the Bible may also contain supernatural elements, representing profound religious and theological insights that science is not equipped to fully explain. These events invite diverse interpretations, from historical and scientific analysis to spiritual symbolism. Recent scientific research has sparked fascinating discussions about how these events might relate to the evolution of the universe, humanity, and natural phenomena. Yet many questions remain unanswered, and religious faith offers a lens that transcends the boundaries of scientific understanding. Whether viewed as scientific phenomena or supernatural experiences, these events resonate differently depending on one's perspective and beliefs. What's your take? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this video gave you a fresh perspective or deepened your understanding of spiritual topics, don't forget to like and share it to spread the knowledge. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for more enriching content in future videos. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.